Just let me know when we're going to go live, and then we'll start.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Okay, we're ready. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, May 10th Parks and Recreation Committee meeting. Welcome to everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or nature thereof? Seeing none. Item 3, adoption of the minutes from April 7th, 2021. Is there any comments, any changes that anyone wants to see? So I just don't see any. I ask for someone to move for an adoption. Linda, second. Stephanie, I think I saw Stephanie. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Business rising from the minutes 4.1. We are going to have Catherine speaking to us, but if it's okay, Ron, I'm just going to push through and then we can circle back. Is that appropriate?
Just coming in now. Just one second.
Okay. All right. Well, there she is. Perfect. Right on time.
Perfect.
Okay. Good evening, Catherine.
Hello, my apologies. Technical difficulties.
No, thank you very much. Sorry, we're actually right at 4.1, so you're going to be up in just a minute. So Catherine's going to do a report, a treasury report, just based on just some numbers that we've had. It's just a report for information, and of course, the numbers are subject to change by amendment from council. So again, it's important, I think, because it gives us a bit of a starting point, maybe a bit of a historical perspective as well. So Catherine, it is all yours. And I think, okay. Paul, did you say you were going to share the screen? Sorry, Catherine. Yep, there we go. Apologies, Catherine.
No worries, that's okay. Just to put this report together, it was requested to put together so you have an idea of where we are at with this project and how we propose funding for it. So I know you're going to be making some decisions on how you want to fundraise for it. So it's good to have some context about what that kind of scope may look like. So as you know, of course, we're working on phase 2, but phase 1 was completed and that was completely funded by both grant and as well as loan, but the loan is completely covered by the rental revenue that we get. And then for phase 2, of course, we applied for the infrastructure program, the ICIP, they call it. And we were found out this spring that we were going to receive $5.5 million towards the project. So now I put some money. So now we have to figure out how we're going to fund the rest of that project because we knew going into that grant that it wasn't going to be 100% funded. So based on the original estimates of the project, I think those were 2019, early 2020 numbers, and of course, a lot has changed. So the estimated cost of the project we have in approximately $9.2 million, but that's based on some kind of a markup based, try to get to today's cost. But of course, we won't know what that final value will look like till you go to tender. So if that is the approximate cost, then we have $5.5 million that we'll get from the grant. And then the spreadsheet that I provided, it talks about the building reserve fund, and that the reserve fund is just a like a savings account that council uses to put money away for future capital projects. And the building reserve is just one of those many different kinds of reserves. And if you want more information about that, you can go back to our early April council meeting where I presented that information. So the council has done a good job of putting money away into this building reserve because they knew that the arena project was coming up. It was identified in the asset management plan a few years ago for sure, and it's also been talked about for several years as well. So it was back then they decided to, and it was requested and suggested that they increase the amount they put into the building reserve fund from the regular tax levy. So each year they have been putting about $400,000 away. So that way we feel comfortable. We could probably draw $1.5 million from that reserve towards this project at this time, right off the top. And then you can have, then I put in a conservative estimate for a fundraising dollars. That's a very conservative goal, and based on conversations with some other people that I've had. But of course, the more you get of that, the less then the remaining of the project has to be funded by through a loan. And that loan payments would come out of the same building reserve over time. So in this case, I just assumed a 10-year term at the current Infrastructure Ontario loan rates, and those are always subject to change. They don't lock in until you get through that process, through the bylaw and all that. And you don't usually apply for those until the end of the project when you know all your final costs. But it doesn't say you can't get construction loans along the way. And then as part of that loan process, the County of Middlesex has a program where they have a program where we can ask them, they'll pay the interest on the first $1 million for 10 years. And that was what I included in the forecast, but the county is working on expanding that program. So I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but that we're going to follow that and see if there's something we can tap into there now, whether it be pay the interest on $2 million or for maybe longer than 10 years, those kind of things. So I used a loan term of 10 years. And that's reflected in that other spreadsheet that I gave with some of the numbers. Of course, you can spread that out. You can give a 15, 20-year loan, and that'll just make your, of course, your loan payments less, pay more interest in the end, but you can spread that out and maybe not deplete the building reserves quite as fast. So that spreadsheet that I have there is a lot of numbers on it, but basically it's just telling you where some money comes in. So you see the contribution to reserves each year, what we currently have drawing from that. So all our different buildings that we've had, of course, the phase 1, the daycare, municipal office, and public works building, that's all coming out, and more revenue streams that help to support that. So that's that in a nutshell. All my my assumptions are included on there. Of course, we don't know the final costs, and of course, I don't know what kind of a fundraising goal you want to have, but at least it puts that in a bit of perspective for you to, are we looking, you have to raise, you need $5 million? Do you need, how we have enough money, can pay for some, like what, but I guess the more, if we don't have to borrow 2 million, the more you fundraise, the better, if that's where you want to put your efforts in that. That's kind of just this for your information, of course, and everything it's a pretty good estimate, but of course it depends what in the end, what council would like to use that fund for, but that was the intent of the increase of the contribution to reserves. I hope I didn't go too fast, but it's a lot of numbers, but I can answer anything that you might want to know.
Catherine, thank you very much. Are there questions or comments for Catherine? Ron, please.
Maybe before we go to questions, Paul, if you can put the spreadsheet back up on the screen there. Just maybe, Catherine, if you could go through each column sort of across, I just want to make sure that everybody understands what that spreadsheet means and how it works.
Sure.
Or do you?
Okay, thank you, Ron. Yes.
So the first column there, the annual contribution to reserves. So in 2020 and 2021, we have $400,000 each year, and we're going to increase that by 1.5% to grow that based on some kind of inflation, or just to help grow that and replenish that fund. And that money comes right from the budget and the operating budget from the tax base. So that comes right from the taxes and goes into this savings account at that rate. So that money comes in. And then we have transfers in from development charges, and that's based on, so development charges get collected on new residential buildings. And in the past, you'd have projects that would have been paid out of this reserve to fund new growth. And so we collect that money and we can replenish this reserve that we pulled from to pay for those projects as we continue to grow, and that project is continue to be collected for within the development charges bylaw and in that study. So that's the numbers in black, I guess, are adds, and the numbers in red are takeaways from this reserve. So then the next column, we have our estimated draw for phase 2 of the arena project of $1.5 million. And the next column is our loan payment for the daycare. And that's the loan we got out for phase 1, which was the construction of the daycare. And that's our term till 2029. And then the next column is our loan payments for the public workshop. And their last payment will be made by June 1st of this year for that building. So that will no longer come out of that fund. They'll be fully paid for. And then the next column is the loan we have for when we constructed the municipal office and the library. So that's the loan that goes all the way to 2040. And then the next column is the phase 2 for the community center. And that was the estimated 10-year loan at 2.05% for $2 million loan. And that would be our payments for those, and that would start at the end of the project, which is estimated for 2022. And then the next one is the county interest subsidy for the municipal office and library. So again, when we did the municipal office and library loan, we tapped into that program from the county where they pay the interest on that first $1 million for the first 10 years of that loan. And then the same thing, the next column is the county interest for based on the phase 2 community center project, the arena project. And that is the interest payments on $1 million for the first 10 years that the county will give us. So that can go right back into this reserve. And then the next column is the revenue we get from the county for the library. So they pay rent for the use of that space for the library, and that offsets part of that loan for the municipal office library project. And then the other income for the daycare revenue, and you can see that exactly matches the daycare loan payment in the column 1 to 5, I think. So that's I don't have that. Of course, past the loan term, we'll still continue collect rental revenue, and I assume that's going to be put back into this reserve to help replenish that. So that'll help add to that number as we go along. And then the remainder of the revenue from the daycare goes towards the operations at the arena. And then the last column is just the balance of the prior year plus all the ins and outs of that year. Gives you your balance that's in the reserve available to use, like that balance of your savings account. And the 2020 balance is still under audit, but it's pretty good number. So it won't change anything by any material value for sure. And then, so that's where our estimate. So if we draw out that $1.5 million this year or even next year, that gives you where we'll be. And then we can use that money for other building projects down the road. Or if we need to pull more, if we don't have to do fundraising, then you've got money. There's money still there to draw from for this project as well with some, and it will quickly be replenished over the years, and council may choose to put any operating surpluses into this reserve as well for future projects. But the arena is one of our whole facility that needs to be revitalized, I guess. Does that make sense? And that's the numbers. That's the rate of up there. I did that as of the end of last month. And then you can see at the bottom all the assumptions that I used to get to the numbers. Does that help? Sorry, did I go too fast?
It's a big spreadsheet. So hopefully if anybody has any questions, or they can think of any questions now, Catherine's here to answer them. If you think of them later, you can just email Catherine with your question and she'll get back to you. So
Great.
thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. Colin, I think you had your hand up, sir.
Yeah, I do. Catherine, thank you very much. Very, very helpful. If I get beat up on anything in this community and my connection to this committee, it's the daycare. And I just wondered, while we had you on the telephone, I just wondered if you could give us a brief synopsis of what the daycare actually cost. I think that there's a lot of people, as we talk about phase 2, are still talking about phase 1. And I just wondered if you could just quickly on the spot break down, because I remember there was a county grant, and based on the spreadsheet that you've just provided, the best I can tell, the daycare has not cost the residents of Lucan any money whatsoever. And I just wondered if you could help me in that assumption.
You're correct on that. So the project came in for, I can't remember the total value, but what we did was I took in the total value, and then we took off the money we got from the province that was facilitated by the City of London. I can't remember the amount. That was before my time. The million.
I can help you there just a little bit, Catherine. The total project was 2.2 million, and council actually had a check in their hands a little over 1.5 million before there was a shovel in the ground. So
From the city,
you're
from the
correct,
city of
Colin. It hasn't cost the taxpayers anything. It's going to be self-funded, and once that loan is paid off, it's going to be a moneymaker for the facility. So.
And hypothetically, I guess there'd be no reason why, if the agreement didn't work out with the YMCA and we decided to reclaim that space when that term was done, we could essentially say that their rent and that grant, bought and paid for that portion of phase 1 without any taxpayer involvement, at least at the local level. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And then second question. Thank you for that. I feel that that one is one that our community should understand a little bit. I think that's important information. And then number 2, my last question for you: if you had to, I know you haven't been with us forever, but if you had to look at what the municipality, what type of shape we were in, say 3 or 4 years ago, as opposed to where we're at now that we're actually getting closer to talking about phase 2, have there been a lot of major change? I mean, I know we've got a lot of growth and new development charges, that type of thing, but I'm not seeing anything major. This seems to be almost the same spreadsheet that we've seen in the past as well. Everything seems to be fairly status quo. And I just wondered if there were any red flags or anything that you thought we as a committee should know.
I don't think so. I think what I've seen, and I've only the couple of years I've been here and having no municipal background, but learning very quickly, I've seen council has done a good job of putting money away, and of course they had the tool called the asset management plan which was created back in 2016. So that really gave a guide and had in there a financing plan of what should be suggested to put away to help save for these projects, and I think they've done a good job with following that. And then as far as this project goes, the community center, I said that's kind of, it's the hub of the community, and it's I think one of the biggest thing that hasn't been revitalized in it's 40 years old plus, right? It needs to be updated, and you've already started the project, so it needs to be completed because you took away something and there's nothing, and it's almost like it's undone. So I don't see any other major buildings at this time that we need, other than, I guess, if the growth continues, you could draw from this, it might need something as far as fire departments go, but I know that's not this group's part of your plate, but we could use some of these funds like that as well. So as long as, and I guess with the growth of the community, that you're increasing your tax base, and that helps to fund the operations and allow council to have some of that money to do other projects or put money away for future projects and have that kind of foresight. So we're able to draw from that kind of growth, tax-based growth alone. But I mean, there's other things, I guess, but I know we have other money put away for other things like parks, and things that, and as you bring on those new subdivisions and you take ownership of them, like we recently last year took ownership of the old Clover park space in there. And so you'll want to have money to develop that, but that can come from development charges. I think we've been collecting for park spaces as well. There's money always put away for parks or development, those kinds of things. That's the only thing, if you want to develop more sports fields and things like that. But then we're also in a very good position. We don't have a lot of loans, so we have that borrowing capacity as well, so that future generations, future taxpayers, future residents can pay for these projects. It's not on the ones that are living here right now. Does that help?
Yes. Colin, is that okay? Did you have anything to follow up, sir? No? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine. Linda, you have your hand up. Yes, please.
Yeah, I just had one question. In your column about kind of income from development fees, it says for 2020, I believe it is. Mine has cut off here. It was like 84. It's just shy of $85,000, and yet the projection thereon is 28,000. Yeah. Okay. So we've got just shy of 85 for 2020. We've just got shy of 85,000, and then from then on, the column is all 28,000. Can you explain that?
Yeah,
we're on a big development right now.
Yeah. So at the end of the year, so at the end of 2020, I look at all of the what we've collected for development charges based on the growth in that year, and then apply that to the projects that are related, that were drawn from the building reserve. So that's kind of an actual number. And then we estimate I think the 28 is very conservative. We know we're in a building boom. I bet that number will be bigger for 2021. I could probably figure that out, we're halfway through the year almost. So that's why we just put a number in there, because we know we're going to have something to draw from to put into this reserve, but we don't know what that is until we go through the whole year with all the and all the building that's gone through the development charges analysis, and that's done after year end. So
Yeah, I would assume that it's going to be higher again this year.
At least for the next few years, I'm sure.
So
And
looking
then-
pretty busy. Looking pretty busy out there. So
It is. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Linda. Were there any other questions or comments for Catherine at this time? Again, we can, if you have any questions that come up about the numbers that she has given and what we've talked about so far, then we can email you, Catherine.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Or
Ron, was
call
there
me.
anything you wanted to add, Ron, or sir?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Catherine's done a good job there. But it's this piece of paper with the numbers on it makes me feel a whole lot more comfortable as as a senior administrator here, because like I said, and like Catherine has said, council's done a good job of socking away the extra money that growth has afforded us, really. So we've been, and this is only one of the reserve funds that gets money allocated to it. There's also a construction reserve, and there's also an equipment reserve. And I think in total, we're probably putting away over $1 million a year into these various reserves. So, and that's, I like to think that's just good management, right? It's like your own household budget. Eventually that vehicle is going to need replacing. You don't want to have to come up with that chunk of change all at the same time. So you put a little bit away each year, and that's Catherine spoke about the asset management plan, and that's really what that does. It breaks down all your various assets into how much money you're supposed to be putting away each year to replace those. So.
Thank you, Ron. All right. Any other questions or comments? Again, you can email Catherine with any questions that may come up in the future. And Catherine, you're welcome to stay. All right. Okay. All right. We will move forward then. We have no delegations or communications. We've just had a report from Catherine. We're going to go to 7 new business, 7.1 synthetic outdoor ice. Paul, you're up.
Sorry, through you, Chair. I wanted to, at this point though, should we maybe have a discussion about fundraising?
We were going to, okay, we can do that at roundtable, but that's fine if you want to do that now. I didn't see it on the sheet, so that's why I didn't mention it. With respect to what we want to do with fundraising, setting goals.
Since we're talking about it, just since Catherine just gave a report, I think it'd be a good time for us to maybe have that discussion.
Okay, we can then open up that discussion to suggestions. And what are we looking for, Paul? We're looking for targets. We're looking for methodology. What would you like to see from us?
It would be nice for the group to maybe provide some direction for me to bring to council so we can really get the ball moving on this. I mean, we got the great announcement. We don't want to drag our feet at this point, I think.
No. Okay. All right. So having said that, so we'll open that up to the members of the committee if people have suggestions and comments. And Linda, thank you.
I did some thinking about this afternoon, and I know we were talking at the last meeting that they were hoping that the tenders would go out August the 1st with a return by mid-September and a start by the end of September. So we have a very short window before the project is actually visibly on the go. Is that going to affect donors? If they see it already happening, are they going to say, what do you need us for? You're already doing it. I have a bit of a concern there. And what's our goal? What is our goal on the amount of money? So that was my concern. If you're going to try and go forward to some of these hopefully big donors and say, we need this, if we really have to operate on that window really quickly, as far as I can see.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Linda. Further, Paul?
If I may, through you, Chair. So an important thing to remember is when campaign coaches came and talked to us, they did state that, it's not a bad thing if the project started. They actually find that it actually helps the cause. I believe it was a 12-month window that he provided. He said, once the shovel's in the ground, you're not going to find donations are going to stop. People actually get excited that they see something happening and then they want to become part of it. So I don't think that there's a fear there. I know, so Catherine, she presented a very conservative goal of 250,000. That's very conservative. I think he thought 1 million was plausible. So I think anywhere from 250 to 1 million, we could kind of just pick a ballpark or maybe say like that's in that range is what we think would be reasonable.
Right. Ian.
Thank you. Just a question. If we did our fundraising and we got to 500,000 or $1 million, would the other funds from the municipality and whatever that Catherine showed us in the spreadsheet, would they stay? So would that fundraising take over something else and then the reserve would then go to, stay in the reserve? I'm just saying that if we did have a lofty goal of whatever it may be, then can we just do upgrades to certain aspects of the arena so that it's a really bang on something that really people are really proud of rather than just doing the bare minimum? That's just a question.
Ron, do you want to tackle that one? Okay.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at the answer there. Ian, you raise a good point. I mean, there's always extra things you can do. So I think what Catherine has tried to paint here is sort of the worst case scenario. So if, say, personally, I'd like to see $1 million goal and, get the major groups like the Lions Club and some of the major donors to get us sort of started on that way. I think the bigger question is, what are we going to get into the taking $1,000 for one of the flip down seats? Do we want to get into that kind of stuff or not? So if say we did raise $1 million here, your question is whether council would take that extra 750 that's over and above the scenario that Catherine presented here and do some extra sort of extra amenities or extra finishes? Like what exactly are you talking about? And maybe before you answer that, Ian, it really is up to council ultimately how they decide to do it. I would suggest that they wouldn't sort of take less than the $1.5 million out of the fund. I would suggest that they would reduce the amount of the loan, right? So, you know, there's a few opportunities there. You may reduce the term of the loan down to 5 years. You may, you know, yeah, they've got a few options there for sure.
Does that answer the question, Ian? Does that help?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I'm just maybe somewhat concerned, as you know, as Colin said, you know, talking about, you know, we're in the community, we hear about, you know, the daycare, you know, where's that money come from, or where did it come from? And same with the addition to the arena and so on, that, you know, if we can do something that is spectacular, and then if, you know, if we do win or get there and win, but raise that $1 million, hopefully that other monies coming from other places will remain, right? So that, and then maybe we have a wish list that we can go from, right? We have a standard that we want to go from, and then we have a wish list as well that, you know, we raise this certain amount of dollars, we can add these things as we get those funds in. That would be my concern. And I think that the community would like that aspect. I would think maybe we have a, you know, this is what we could do if we raise this dollar value, and this is the next step we could go for, right? And then it's something they see, right? Then we wouldn't have to answer so many questions, I think, and having any unknowns with the community, which I think would help.
If I may, Mr. Chair, one item that Paul and I had talked about is if, you know, if there was sort of extra money that we could maybe not play with, maybe that's not the right expression, but for example, the pool. Okay, right now the plan is to totally gut the pool house and change all the mechanicals in there, but not actually make the pool handicap accessible. You know, maybe if there was an extra 750,000 out there, maybe that would be an opportunity. The only thing that Paul and I thought about that is that might be an opportunity for another grant through Trillium in a year or so. So if we try and strategically go for grant money, we may be able to do more with the monies we have there. But yeah, maybe there's extra amenities that we could put inside the arena that would spruce it up even more. But my biggest question mark right now is what's that tender price going to be? And that's a big question mark, right? Like we got our fingers crossed that it's not going to be, you know, north of 10 million kind of thing, because that changes the picture a bit. And you know, it's not all doom and gloom either. Don't let me. It's not all black, because like I said, Catherine's done a good job here. She's got 2 million spread out over 10 years. That's pretty aggressive payback for a full community center, you know, rebuild. So I mean, it's not unusual for those things to go 20, 25 years. So we do have some room to maneuver there. But like Catherine said, the longer the term, the more interest you pay. It's just like a mortgage, right? So you're going to try and pay it off as quick as you can. But again, you do have some wiggle room there, depending on what you need. So.
Great, thank you, Ron. Follow up, Ian. You okay? You're right. Okay. Thank you very much for those questions. Is there any other further questions or comments, suggestions? Amanda, yes, and then Todd. Amanda, please.
Yeah, so I was just reading the campaign slide deck that was sent along, and I just didn't know if they had suggested, because I do like Ian's idea of if we raise this amount, you can do this, but if we raise a little more, we can add and all that. I just didn't know if they had any suggestions on having a definite goal. I mean, you always hope to exceed it, but what they may have said around that.
Paul, did you?
Yeah, I believe the goal they felt was, because they did the whole study, campaign coaches did the study based on a $3 million goal. And that's when they determined that based on the answers they received, 1 million was more realistic. Yeah. By all means, like I think we definitely, I don't see why we couldn't, like when we come up with like naming rights, kind of ways to show rewards for donations. So those are the things we had to figure out. I reached out to Middlesex Center for their their table. I wasn't able to get all the information from them, but they did suggest North Perth recently went through this, so I'm going to be reaching out to them. And it's part of those examples, like it could be, as Ron said, you know, bucket seats, you know, that's not on it right now, but maybe that's something people want. You know, you pay this much in donation, you get a bucket seat with your family's name on it. So I think that's where we could set those goals.
Okay.
I think how the project was submitted, we can't veer from that, obviously, because that's what was approved for the grant. But there's no reason for like finishing touches or
Improvements.
other things, you know, like beyond what we're doing. I don't see why we couldn't put that on the goal if we reach past the million. But I think that'll be, council will have to make that that final decision on like kind of like where's their price point, because they're gonna have to approve it, right?
Amanda, follow up to that or another question?
No, that answers it.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you, Paul. Todd?
I have a comment and a question. My comment really is a follow-up to what Ian and I agree with Amanda. I think that's a great idea about setting the goals. And my opinion, based upon what we just saw from Catherine and the numbers that were shown to us now, it seems that two goals that stand out to me are the obviously the 250,000 to make the project go through. And then the $1 million after that, which the $1 million that we're paying the 2% interest, 2.05% interest on. So, you know, having that 1.25 million as being the interest-free loan from that point forward, I think that would resonate with a lot of people. Is that now we are building the project, and you know, yes, we did borrow, but it's an interest-free loan, and you know, we're not in a lot of debt. That would be my comment. My question is, and I think it's great that we're having this open discussion, but my question is in order to move forward with the fundraising program, we definitely need some type of a leadership structure in place as to champion this. And I'm wondering, has discussions taken place as to what that leadership is going to look like?
Sorry, did Ron or Paul, did you want to answer that one? Or I know that we've had some discussion about that. Ron,
We have, and I've said it to a lot of people. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a fundraiser. I've never done anything like that. And, you know, I do think, Todd, you sort of hit the nail on the head. We need somebody who can do this. And who is that? And I know I reached out to Colin with an idea, and I'm not, you know, I guess I've got two people in mind that I think would be a great sort of co-chairs of a fundraising committee. And I think, you know, that's something that we should look at and recommend to council that be established. Because I do think if you're going to raise the kind of money that we hope to raise, the only way you can do that is with a couple of dedicated people who are, you know, have some familiarity with the community, have some contacts, have some business sense, and can do that kind of thing, right? And that's, you know, Paul's busy doing his stuff. I'm busy doing our stuff. We're not going to be able to dedicate the time that would be required to do that kind of thing. So, you know, I don't know if I'm comfortable putting those two names on the table, but I think it would be appropriate for this committee to make a recommendation to council that they establish a formal fundraising committee with co-chairs. And sorry, Paul, I don't know if I stole your thunder there or you got anything to add to that, but that's kind of where my head's at. And I think if we're going to do something, that's the way to do it, and do it right and do it properly. So,
yes. So thank you, Ron. Paul, and then I had something to add to that if I could. So yes, go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say on that note, part of when campaign coaches did make the presentation to council, and the big thing, that initial list that was generated, it was recommended that, you know, if we use them or we did it ourselves, that the idea is you want someone to head this committee that is going to be on that list. So someone that would be on that list as a donor should probably be someone that we would approach for that position. Ron, I'm for something like this, I'm not sure like if we just put out advertisements or if we actually approach people. I think council would have to make that decision. I would assume that they probably want to approach someone that was on that list to, after having some.
I wouldn't advertise because they might run for the bushes and not answer your phone call.
Sorry, Stephanie, you had your hand up. Sorry, Paul, I'm just going to move to Stephanie. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I sort of have a two-parter. I guess when everyone's talking about, obviously we want the big donors and the businesses and things like that, but to Ian and Amanda's point of getting community involvement and people excited about it, how are we going to get that? Because while businesses care about the community, they might not care about the bucket seats or things like that. So how can we get those, do we want sort of an individual based approach too, in addition to the businesses? And I would say just sort of a food for thought is like, how can those businesses or recreational places like the hockey school, maybe they get involved and they get people excited and things kind of go from there. And then my second point is just how does COVID affect fundraising? Because we're definitely not going to be able to sort of do the typical fundraising that people do. So how would that work? Like, luckily we are in summer months and things like that. So things could probably move outside if it is a individual based fundraiser we're looking for, but just that would be great. And Paul, if you're going to talk to North Perth, that would be interesting to know as well too.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. I did actually, if I may, I just wanted to ask something or maybe make a comment about something. So when we talk about connection to community, and I believe it was Colin that mentioned it, one of the things that I had just thought about, and I may have heard it at this committee, but we're thinking about making this a connection for the whole community. And I'm thinking that we have, and if my demographics are right, about 40% of the population are new into our community when they have the 2 and 3 year olds. And they're the ones that are going to be using the community center for the next 25 or 30 years. And I'm wondering, and I know that historically we've gone to sort of those names that Ron has mentioned. And I'm thinking what we need to do is maybe go to people who haven't been here as long. That's the connection we've made them. And if we get them involved in it, and a little bit what Stephanie said, and I think what Amanda said too, is we need to get that connection to community and connection to the project. So in one sense, we're going to be asking people who are historic in our community. We also have to think about the people that are not historic and the ones that are just starting their own history, and Luke and Badolf as well. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, or Paul?
If I may, I feel that's very accurate. I think a lot of what everyone's saying, it's almost like there's 2 campaigns. There's a community campaign that we need to, it's the smaller dollars, but it helps people feel ownership for the project and, feel proud about it. They're investing in their family's future in Luke and Badolf. And then there's the larger dollar campaign that's for businesses or, historical families or, the naming rights of a room kind of thing. Like, so you almost have like it's almost like it's a 2 campaign, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay, it does. Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, I was just asking for any other further comments, and just while I'm talking, if something comes up, wonderful. I'm just wondering, do we, at this point, Paul, do you have enough from this group to make recommendations to council so that council can move forward? I'm thinking with respect to, and I'm just going to throw it out there, with respect to a goal that we might reach, a financial goal, the establishment of a committee, and perhaps approaching people in the community to perhaps head up these, to have co-found or head up these committees. Is that what we're looking for here? Because, and I'm just asking this just as chair, I'd like to see after this discussion, Paul going to council with something, and we do need to move on it. I don't know if anybody disagrees with that. Colin?
So a couple comments. I'll jump back to Ian, basically keeping the extra money at the arena. And I guess at this particular point, with the amount of money that we have coming from the provincial and the federal government and the cost of borrowing right now, I hope at the end of this, there is no one that feels like we skimped out on anything. And I don't mean gold hallways, but I think that we need to take an opportunity right now to once again visit with our service groups, make sure that they're getting what they need out of this building, because I know that we've looked at the plans on a very, very high level, but we've never been in the hallways to figure out what's this and what's that. We're not in close enough. So at the end of the day, I really hear what Ian's saying, but I don't want anyone to feel like we chimped out, because we can afford it. Second of all, I think that, a fundraising goal, I want to make sure that we meet it. So I would certainly not be in favor of going any higher than $1 million. I also would be okay with going 750, and let's see us beat 750 and land around $1 million, but I'm just one voice there. And lastly, I guess, for us, the campaign coaches, they did all of these studies, they collected all of the names. Who's got the names? And if you're going to put anything to council, I would say ask them to ask whoever has the list of names, because we don't have them. Council likely doesn't have them. So we don't have a lot of information to go on there. And as far as who can lead this, I'll be honest, I've been thinking about it for 2 years, and I don't know if I have the right name in my head. There's maybe some people that we could twist and force into it, but I don't see anyone standing on the starting line with their hand in the air. I think that there's some service groups in town that are likely equipped to play a big part in this if we pushed on them. But I think that whoever's going to make that decision needs some more information from the campaign coaches. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Colin. Paul first.
We do have that list.
Yeah.
It's just so you're aware, because we had to compile it to provide to campaign coaches to set up the interviews. So we do have that list.
Great. Sorry, Ian, I think I skipped over you. My apologies.
No, I know we're going through this a lot and a lot of questions and kind of unanswered questions somewhat, but and also answered as well. Is going back to the idea of, as Colin said, about the daycare, a lot of people have misconceptions of where the money came from or who paid for it and so on. Same with the construction with the arena and community center, is that they see dollar values of so many millions of dollars from the federal and provincial government, but they don't understand that why do we need to raise another 750 or $1 million? So having that breakdown, is that a good suggestion to give to our community so that the questions are taken care of from a bigger aspect from council and from from the people that are making the decisions, rather than Colin or me or Todd or whoever it is in the community, answering those questions and talking over and over and over again about those things, right? That shouldn't be put on, say this council or anyone else, so that they have an understanding. This is why we're doing this fundraising, right? So they have the numbers, so they can make those decisions on their own, so to speak, right? But
right.
It's guided decisions, right? Not assumptions.
So you're just talking, sorry, if I just made, and you're just talking more about an information session,
right? Because why would they say, why do we need to have this fundraising when they say, well, we've got all this millions of dollars, what's the reason for this fundraising? So it brings them back in tow of going back to Stephanie's and Amanda's, that give them some ownership of why they're doing it, right?
Right. Okay. Yes. Understood. Good point. Yes. Did anybody want to? Ron, is that, I'm going to pick on Ron just to see, is that something we can do? Is that something that we should be doing, do you think? Just your opinion.
It's never a bad idea to do that. Exactly, Ian. The more information we can get out there, the better it's going to be for everybody. Like Colin, I think you said it as well, Colin, the more information people have, the more they understand about the project, and are we perfect? We're never perfect. Your question about the daycare makes me feel that, okay, we didn't do a good job with the daycare issue, so we got to do a better job with the phase 2 project to make sure that doesn't happen, right? So Ian, you made a good point. Maybe it's, how do you do that in the time of COVID? Like Stephanie's point there, I don't know. It's kind of difficult. You can't have an open house where you can have people gather, right? So do we do that by, does the mayor do a live Facebook Live session that's available on the social media pages. Do we sort of try the household flyer route to get that information out? Some of them flyers, I think people just chuck them. They never get to leave the post office, right? And that's a waste of paper too. And it's kind of painful to see, but I think your point is well taken. We have to try, and how best to do that is the question. So that's given us something to think about.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ron. Amanda and then Linda.
So I was just thinking about it, and that's kind of almost a two-part for this fundraising committee, or the person who chairs it is an educational piece to begin with. And maybe that's the way that, not to give work direction to them in particular, but maybe that's the way we kick it off, is with the educational piece, so that we can regain the community's trust in how we're using the funds right from the get-go. So it's kind of a two-part position, whether that's 1, 2, or 3 people. They have to know their fundraising background, and they also have to be able to engage with the community and build that trust. And I think it does start with showing the numbers, and here's where the numbers may go for you too.
Okay. Amanda, thank you. Linda? Yes, please. Yes.
I agree with Amanda. I think a pause for an educational opportunity. Transparency, I think, is a good thing. It will save everybody from getting attacked all over the place. Let's be transparent. Let's explain what's there and where we're going. But the education part might include having to go back and explain briefly about part 1, the daycare. And then, okay, now we're on part 2, and this is where we are. So the education, in order to stop people from saying, no, I'm not involved, because look what you did with the daycare. If they understood that the daycare is not costing them anything, in fact, is going to be an earning thing, I think that would be a revelation to some. And I'm really sick of hearing about the color. But the transparency and education, I think, is a critical step in moving forward. I like the green.
Thank you for your comments, Linda. Paul is next, please.
Yeah, I think showing those numbers are great, but the explanation that goes with them is even better. I think that's a huge tool that we should provide to whoever's running this campaign, or going out talking to people. But even better, like this meeting tonight, it's on YouTube. Show people the link. It's been a great tool to have this ability, and people go back and they rewatch. And there's people that come up to me on the street. They'll say, hey, I didn't realize that, or I didn't realize that this is what was going on over here, or how you came to that decision. So this can be a great tool here, because Catherine had her presentation, and it explains everything. And I think too, maybe Catherine and I can work together, and maybe we can create like a slide portfolio to have people go out there with maybe some audio link to it that has the explanations with the numbers. So you're not just looking at a picture and trying to figure it out yourself. The explanation, I think, is huge.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Colin, yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be that it's already pushing halfway through May. All of a sudden summer's going to come and this is all going to be over. My suggestion would be, if you want to take something to council, would be that we kick off a serious capital campaign the day after the long weekend in September, the day after Labor Day, on that Tuesday, first day back to school. That's when people remember where the arena actually is, and get the show on the road. And in the meantime, we need to have the tendering completed, or we at least have to have a better handle on the actual fees. We need to discuss with our service groups to make sure that we're doing all of the right things, and we need to fine tune what that number is and figure out who's going to lead this thing. And I know Todd said it at our last meeting, when we figure out who's going to be the chair or whatever, we want to have them have some buy-in. So it would be really nice if they were along with the ride before we determine the actual goal. So I guess that's my thoughts at this point, that we don't necessarily rush into launching, let's do 750K and just get into it. I'd rather see us come up with a solid plan and start running in September.
Okay. Thank you, Colin. Paul, did you have your hand up, or?
I was crossing my fingers that kids will be back at Labor Day.
Oh,
But no, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Colin. Thank you, everyone. This has been a very valuable conversation, and I do feel that this provides me with great context to bring forward at the next council meeting. So hopefully next council meeting, we can have a decision on this. Tendering for the engineering closes on May 17th. So hopefully, you know, things are moving there, but we're getting there. So hopefully we'll have more by the next council meeting.
okay. Thank you, Paul. Is there any other comments or questions on this? And Paul, of course, they can contact, sorry, Keith, did you have your hand up or?
Yeah, just one quick question.
Yes.
How confidential is these building reserve numbers? Like I know that, by the sounds of listening to everyone, just trying to, we need to open up about what we've been doing. Like just sitting here thinking, well, going back to Kraft, Hockeyville, we never did explain where all that money went towards, right? You know, that word's always been out and this child or daycare. But anyway, the building reserve, how confidential can that be on the website? Just open things up, or is that just going to stir up a bunch of worms?
Ron? Yes, sir.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and Catherine, you can confirm this. Those numbers are all publicly available. They're discussed at council during budget deliberations and everything else. So, you know, Keith, you brought up another good point, that Hockeyville money. Where did that all get spent? It all got spent in the arena for good things. But again, maybe everybody doesn't understand what it went for. So that's another good point. You know, Colin, you made the point about the daycare, you know, and I messaged, private messaged Catherine and said, how much is the rent? And I think the first year that they rented, the YMCA pays about $77,000 a year in rent. Okay, so you can see that, you know, the payment is $68,000. So the difference goes to the arena to offset, you know, the expenses. Obviously, we have to pay for heat and hydro, but you know, it is more than covering itself. And then once that that loan is paid off, it'll be a lot better at that point. So it'll actually help the community center's bottom line, right? So, but again, we have to get that message out. So it's not just going back as far as the daycare, it's going back as far as Hockeyville to get the whole picture. So I appreciate the comment. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you very much, Keith. Is follow up to that, sir?
No, I'm good. I just feel that we're just the information is just not getting out there. Just listening to everybody's comments, and it's like that's what we're lacking. I just think that we had a breakdown of what we've been doing, what we've talked about. We've been in this discussion stuff for a while now, and sort of know pieces here that we know what this went here and this went here, but you know, that's between 6 or 7 people, not the whole community. So I just think, I think that's one thing we maybe should address, just try and open it up. So other than that, I think we're good.
Good. All right. Thank you very much, Keith. Thank you. All right. So Paul, we're good moving forward. You feel confident going forward to council? And okay, we're good.
Yeah, I definitely do. Thank you, Chair. And you know, hearing this over and over again, I really think, you know, Catherine, maybe you and I think I'd like to meet, and maybe what we do is we have a multimedia presentation, like the timeline, you know, point A to B, like how we got here. So I think if we can have that, you know, not everyone's on the internet, but a lot of people are now. You know, more and more now with COVID, people are getting more and more used to it. So maybe that's something we can do. And you know, if we can't get to everyone, maybe we even have a little booklet that goes out. You know, I know it's more important to have that the audio explanation with it, but I really think that that's something that might be nice at the launch of this campaign as well.
Right. Thank you, Paul. Just before I move forward, I'm just another opportunity for just any other last minute comments. Are we okay? Seeing it. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I so enjoy working with you guys. Okay. We're going to move to new business now. 7-1, and Paul, it's synthetic outdoor ice.
Yes, so we were approached by a company named Gleiss. They're originally, I believe, Swiss, but they're operating out of Guelph. There's a branch in Guelph, and what they offer is outdoor synthetic ice. I'm a little skeptical on outdoor synthetic ice, but they've offered as soon as the COVID lockdown is complete, they'd like to bring us out a test sheet, as in, these winters getting harder and harder for outdoor rinks. And, we've been looking at outdoor rinks and what we could possibly do. But with a product like this, they say around 40 grand can get us a good sized skating rink. And there's little no operations cost. Obviously, there's just some minor maintenance. And they say it can last up to 20 years. So I think once this is done, the lockdown, I'm going to arrange for them to come out, and maybe they're going to bring a little test rink, and I'd like the committee to come, if depending on gathering sizes and what we can do. But with COVID protocols, I think it might be interesting for us to check out, maybe just for something to look forward to a project in the future, maybe to meet the needs of all the people that want outdoor rinks in Lucan. So maybe Keith, it'll save you some water in Granton as well.
It could be our first past COVID party, and I'm buying. And I know this is being recorded. Okay. Any comments, questions for Paul at all? Paul, actually, I did have a question. Where would they put this?
It can go on any outdoor surface. They can even build like a wooden base for it if you want, because it's modular. So say we had a piece of land we wanted to put it on, and then Bacon Fest comes around, or there's a soccer party, or who knows, it can be removed and moved out of the way.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments for Paul on 7.1? All right, seeing none, we'll go to 7.2. Paul, that's you as well. Outdoor exercise equipment.
Yes, so as you know, the Hydro One grant we were unsuccessful for. Amanda offered some grant opportunities. I've been looking around, and it actually meeting with the playground people. One of them let me know that there is actually a Community Foundations of Canada grant. It's coming out again on May 14th. So I'm going to be reapplying for that project again.
Okay. Questions for Paul on 7.2? Don't see any. We're good. Okay. 7.3 play equipment. Paul again, please.
Just to keep everyone in the loop, we've closed our survey. We actually had quite a large participation in both the Lucan Community Center play equipment and the Granton play equipment. We've eliminated it down to the top 3 for each, and now we are sending it off to the AODA committee just to get the final approval and comment, so we make sure that we're meeting everyone's needs.
Okay. And questions, comments for Paul on that item? And we have, okay. 7.4, Paul, Trails Committee.
Yeah, so part of the Parks and Rec master plan was to formalize the Trail Committee of Lucan Biddulph. It actually, in 2010, headed by Bruce Lamb of the Lucan and District Lions Club, there was a Trails Committee, and they formed a trail master plan. So I was reading through it, and I actually met with Bruce a couple weeks ago. We went over to the Martins Trail and took a walk down there. It's a fantastic trail. If you haven't gone out there yet, it's just over on Corsi. So, I kind of wanted to pick his brain a bit to see like what kind of obstacles they had. Why did it stop in 2010? And really, it's just there wasn't someone to take over. So I think through council, we need to put a formal committee together. And I think Bruce he doesn't have lots of free time these days, but he said he'd be willing to, meet with the committee and just give them some pointers, or come talk to the committee. I think it'd be great for Lucan Biddulph. It's come up in a few council conversations lately, talking about connectivity throughout the town. It's more than just trails. It's, pathways going through subdivisions. I think it's going to be an integral part of Lucan's growth coming forward in the future. So it's I'm going to be putting together a proposal for council for what that committee would look like in its terms of reference. And I think it's going to be great, because it'd be nice to help out some of these residents who have donated their land for trails. Maybe there's a way that the township can assist them in a way, to help any way we can. I know the Lions Club has been a huge help. They've done a lot of cleanups for them already. So I think if we can help out too, we can really make it a bigger community project.
Thanks, Paul. Questions or comments on Trails Committee? Paul, I do have a question. When is that coming to council?
Shortly. I have to put together terms of reference.
Okay.
I've been talking with the neighboring communities and how theirs work. And the biggest thing is having that master plan. And we have one from 2010. So I think it's, a lot of the ideas in there are similar to ideas that I've had about trails for Lucan Badolf. So I think it's a good reference to go off.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Todd, yes, sir.
That's just a comment to Paul. You're mentioning Martin's Trails, and I do know that the Lions Club actually, as of a couple of years ago, I guess it's 3 now, really did commit a lot of manpower and resources to try and build that trail back up again. But it certainly does take a great deal of long-term investment to keep that that one trail going, much less a series of them. So I think creating a committee of people that are passionate about doing that would be a great idea, because it certainly is a resource that would be utilized in the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd. Any other questions or comments for Paul on this item? And seeing none. Okay. 7.5, pool and summer camp, and Abby.
Perfect, thank you. So just a quick update with our pool and summer day camp. Summer day camp, we're still looking for and reviewing new oncoming guidelines for summer day camp. But the pool, we have yet to receive any new interest in employment as a lifeguard at the pool. So fingers are still crossed, but I mean, the window is kind of closing for the preparation with the pool. So Paul is going to be having some tough heartstring conversations upcoming likely. So again, if you know anybody, send them my way. Anybody you know that's a lifeguard certified, young, old, doesn't matter, send them my way.
All right, thank you. Ian.
So just understanding, if you don't get enough lifeguards, then the pool may not open?
Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. Yeah, if we can't safely have a pool. So the big problem we have right now is even 2 of our guards, they're waiting to do their final test, and pools aren't open. So, and it's not just us. There's people having a lot of difficulty doing recertification. Southwest Middlesex, they're going to host. They're trying very desperately. They're working with both Red Cross and Life Saving Society, trying to get something set up. So any guards that we do get, that if they need a recert, Southwest is willing to work with us, as well as Strathroy. And all those, the other municipalities of the county, they're letting any guards that are unsuccessful with them know that we're looking for lifeguards. We've reached out to the YMCA, knowing that their pool is closed because it's indoors, so their facility's shut down. Maybe their lifeguards are looking for some work right now, but we're not getting anything, and it's really unfortunate. And I'd hate to not have a pool for a second year. And yeah, it just, if we don't have any more guards, we can't safely do it, unfortunately.
So what size of a pool do they need to qualify? I know it's going to sound like maybe a silly suggestion, but if somebody had a private pool and they fired up their heater, it sounds like we're desperate, and it sounds like Ian's point. The point is that we may not have, because of this, we may not have a pool for the kids.
I can speak to that, Chair. The NLS certification actually takes place amongst a group, because you need to have the victims as well as bystanders and participating lifeguards assist in the rescues and so forth. So if it was as easy as maybe a somersault or a couple front strokes, they could get certified, but they do work within the team environment in order to be successfully qualified for their NLS.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, I did not know, so I just was taking a shot in the dark. Okay, sorry. Ian, yes, sir.
Sorry, on that point, thanks, Abby, for that. But can we not even get volunteers to be those rescuers rather than in part of, extra lifeguards? Like, I think there's ways around it to, think outside the box. If this is the case and residents see that, as Paul stated, may not have a pool for 2 summers in a row, and there's openings, if things open up, as hopefully they do with COVID, that's be pretty disappointing for a lot of residents because they're not capable of having a pool or can afford it or whatever it may be. I'm just thinking, you probably thought of many different scenarios, but I think there's hopefully some options that we can, maybe entertain to hopefully have this go through. Just my point.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, further comments? So anybody we know, send them Abby's way. Todd, yes, sir.
Yeah, my question is, we're talking about the NLS certification, and do we absolutely have to have somebody with an NLS? Can we not? My understanding is somebody with a Bronze Cross is technically capable of lifeguarding. Is that not an option?
Previously, all of our lifeguards have been NLS certified. Yes, technically you can operate with the Bronze Med, specifically offering swimming lessons as well if you have your swim cert, your swim instructor cert. But with the rotation of the lifeguards, fully NLS certified lifeguards are more desirable in order to operate the pool at the hours that we do offer because of rotations, guards on deck, the ratios, scheduling, vacation time with the students. Students are hard to schedule regardless. But yes, it is, in theory, yes, it is possible to have a Bronze Med certified lifeguard and patrol a pool.
Yes, Todd, follow up.
Yeah, well, my opinion would be that, I mean, obviously we would want to have the best qualified people available. And if the best qualified people available are those with a Bronze Cross, it would be preferable to closing the pool. I know that there's be a lot more people that have the Bronze Cross, and they may not be the experience that we're looking for, but in my opinion, it beats the alternative.
Truthfully, we have no lifeguards at this point that even hold a NLS certification. So we don't have anyone on deck that would be fully certified. Our applicants have not completed that final stage. They do have the Bronze Med, but we would need fully certified lifeguards.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Abby. Anything further to this? Seeing none. Okay. Thank you very much, Abby, for your report. I appreciate it. Number 8, roundtable discussion opened up to questions, concerns, comments, anything else? And I'm not seeing anything because it's Monday and we're tired. I knew that. Yeah, there we go. Any other comments from Paul? Is there anything else that we wanted to mention? Nope. We're good. Okay, let's talk about our next meeting and our date for next meeting. Paul, do you have a suggestion?
I think at this point, I don't want to set a date simply because in the next month, there's a whole bunch of things they're kind of coming to a head, and I'd like to have them for the committee next time we meet. So I think, I'll try and give a bit more notice for the next meeting, but I think I wouldn't like to set a date at this time.
Right. Okay, and you'll just send out one of those, what are they called? Doodle? I don't know.
Doodle?
Yeah, doodle. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, excellent. Yes. See how techie I am, guys? I got that. All right. With that, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn our meeting. And I just need somebody to move that. And Colin and Todd, second by Todd, all in favor. There we go. And that passes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening. And